So very good evening to all of you from Shantiniketan. I am Dr. Soumodip Chattopadhyay, an associate professor in economics at Vishwabharati University, Shantiniketan, and senior fellow of Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. On behalf of the Center for Habitat, Urban and Regional Studies, IMPRI, and Team IMPRI, I welcome you all to this City Conversation Talk series. And as we know, the world is urbanizing, and so is India. And our cities are plagued with challenges around service delivery and infrastructure, which will likely only worsen as India continues to urbanize at a rapid pace. And history tells us that diseases have shaped the cities. We have the example of London. Cholera outbreak in London led to development of better sanitation systems. In India, Surat fought back plague to come out with a public health leader. And COVID-19 joins this list of diseases with higher incidence in urban areas. And the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has already shown how global shocks can further unearth the evils of decades of mismanagement in cities. And in India's big COVID battle, cities are the frontline warriors, but they have no money. The city governments in India have continued to suffer from dwindling finances, which is an outcome of a long history of neglect and imprudent policy decisions. They have never had enough resources to satisfactorily fulfill the functions devolved to them in decentralization process triggered by this famous 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. And this has been a matter of serious concern over the years, especially for the smaller cities. Majority of the Indian cities, they remain reliant on intergovernmental transfers that are often predisposed against the urban areas. The revenue instruments available to them are limited. Cities also lack the legal authority to generate their own funds, such as property taxes on taking on the debt. Even if the cities are able to generate resources, then there are also limitations on how the financial resources can be used and secured. In recent times, in fact, a lot of emphasis has been put on private finances, public-private partnerships, and so on. But investors have expressed concerns regarding the ability of the cities to generate new projects, properly design and scope them, adequately manage fiscal resources, and disclose relevant financial information. So if we look beyond this present COVID-19 crisis, Indian cities have enormous potential to act as the growth nodes. But the challenges they are facing are daunting. Among the different options, city governments in India required significant financial resources. So the crucial question is, what can cities do in the short term as well as in the long run to improve their financial health to attract more investment for sustainable projects? Our center, the Center for Habitat, Urban and Regional Studies at IMPRI, along with Industria Global and Citymakers Mission International, has launched a discussion series, The State of Cities, City Conversation. In this talk series, we plan to engage with experts on urban and regional studies to understand the challenges in urbanization and also making the cities sustainable and inclusive. Today, we are delighted and honored to have with us Dr. Ravikant Joshi, and who will be going to speak on these state of finances of cities of India. So on our behalf, on behalf of Team IMPRI, I welcome you, sir, to this City Conversation talk. And yes, and before you begin your talk, so let me just give you all of you a brief introduction of Dr. Joshi. Dr. Joshi is an urban finance and management specialist and has worked in India and abroad. He is the former Chief Accounts Officer of Vadodara Municipal Corporation with more than 35 years of experience. He has been responsible for the conceptualization, designing, and implementation of municipal financial, budgetary and accounting system reforms and their computerization in Vadodara Municipal Corporation. Dr. Ravikant Joshi worked as an advisor urban to the CRISIL Risk and Infrastructural Solutions, Mumbai from 2002 to 2017. He has also worked as a short-term consultant for multilaterals like World Bank, Water and Sanitation Program, ADB, USAID, DFID, UN Habitat, and for various national and state level organizations and on urban issues. From 2017 to 2019, Dr. Joshi worked as the team leader as a technical support group to the National Urban Livelihood Mission under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. He conceived, designed, and spearheaded the implementation of accrual-based double entry accounting system in 159 municipal bodies of Gujarat. And at present, since August 2019, Dr. Joshi is working as an advisor to the Urban Management Center, Ahmedabad, and also he is working as a freelance consultant. And more than 30 research papers have been presented in seminars and published in various journals of international repute on various urban issues, especially on the urban finance. And Dr. Joshi also served as the chair professor of urban management in St. Joseph College of Business Administration at Bangalore. And Dr. Joshi has delivered several lectures and shared his experiences as a guest faculty at several national institutions and has trained the municipal officers, elected representatives, urban activists, also regarding the urban issues and problems deliberately in the regional language to create the public awareness. So this is very crucial. And also, he has worked with various civil society organizations like Yuva, Priya, Yanagraha, Center for Environmental Education, Janwani, Avanta Foundation, etc., and so on. So may I now request Dr. Ravikant Joshi to present his talk today, the state of finances of cities in India. And just before the beginning of the talk, just a little bit of housekeeping. So I request all of the participants to post their questions in the Q&A box, and we will be trying to address all of these questions individually. And if due to the time constraints, if we are unable to answer some of your questions, we will share these questions with our expert, Dr. Joshi, and then we will get back to you with all his responses. So the floor is all yours, sir, Dr. Joshi. So please.
Thank you, Dr. Soumyadeep Chattopadhyay, and thanks to the organizers. I'm really honored to give this talk, and also thankful to all the participants who have logged in and will be logging in for this talk. So without wasting time, let me get started with my presentation. So initially, I will take some time where I will present my presentation, and then you can have a question posted in the question box, and then Soumyadeep ji will talk to me or ask me those questions, and we will have a lively discussion. So today's topic is state of finances of cities in India. Dr. Soumyadeep said that yes, our municipal bodies require a lot of finances. They require resources. There are issues about the autonomy, about the adequacy of the resources and all that. But at the same time, another aspect of this issue is that we need a huge capacity building of these local bodies. Otherwise, giving them more resources, and particularly last 20 years, that has been the trend. Thankfully, central government and state governments have realized the importance of the urban infrastructure and making cities growth centers. But unfortunately, the capacity building, hard budgetary constraints are missing, and somewhere it has so happened that the resources are given, but urban local bodies, because of a lot of imperfections and legacy of the lack of capacity, it is something like pouring water in a leaking bucket. So we are not getting the kind of value for money for the resources which are put into the urban sector, which are not enough. So let me get started with that starting note. There are certain perennial issues, some of which Dr. Soumyadeep ji has mentioned. Quickly, if we can have a look that at local level, in economics also, the local taxes are inferior in nature, in their buoyancy and in capacity. That's a structural issue. But in India, our local bodies have very few resources. They are inadequate. And now after coming in of GST, many local taxes have got subsumed. So what is left now only is the property tax with the urban local bodies. And as you know that GST has put at the moment a temporary end to the powers of even state government or anybody to have consumption-based taxes. So in near future, unless until there is a constitutional amendment, new consumption-based taxes cannot be given to the urban local bodies. It will require again a overhauling of the entire system. Then there are inroad by the state governments over the 70 years. So in fact, 1882, there was a Lord Ripon who gave the first charter, and it is known as a Lord Ripon Charter for local governments in India. And whatever taxes it mentioned in that charter, we haven't added any single tax in last 120 or 40 years to that list. Rather, many of the taxes has been taken away. So there is no qualitative statement. It's a polity and it's a issue of the way we have gone for the development. But matter of the fact is that now without, except property tax, there is nothing left with the municipal bodies. Absence of autonomy is there, then inadequate functional and fiscal devolution. As I said, no new taxes has been given, and even 74th constitutional amendment, that 12th schedule has yet not been completely implemented. Even the 25 years have passed to the 74th constitutional amendment. SFCs were created, but even they haven't addressed the perennial problems. They definitely have increased the devolution from the state governments to the urban local bodies. So definitely there is some positive achievement, but the way Central Finance Commission gravitate the things, State Finance Commission still yet to come to that stature. Then over the years, institutional fragmentation has happened. So actually urban local bodies are mainly nowadays a maintenance body or looking mainly for the sanitation. Of course, there is a poor administration. As I said, there is a very long legacy of lack of capacity building. So tax administration and other powers. Then there is a non-augmentation of the tax resources by the urban local bodies, inadequate borrowing powers, and also options, because there are supply side constraints. It's not only demand side constraints, but supply side constraints also there. In all, these are the basically perennial problems. But coming to the state of cities or state of finances of cities in India, we have to look at what is existing, or in last 20 years it has happened. So these are the 9 basic things, and 10th, I will just at the end, I will say, but these are the 9 what we can say realities about city finances in India. First is a minuscule and stagnant share of municipal finance, around 1% for last almost 20 years. Though in absolute term figures have increased, devolution to the urban local bodies has increased, and in absolute term it may look astronomical, because somewhere back in 1996-97, central government was giving around 250 crore rupees in all for the entire ministry and urban sector. Today, almost 30,000 crore are flowing every year only from the central government, including Central Finance Commission devolution for the urban local bodies and central government grants. We have so many missions which are providing capital funds for capital grants for the urban infrastructure development. Smart city mission is there, Amrut is there, PMY is there. So many, Swachh Bharat mission, all those. So in absolute terms, it's a big amount, but if we look at, then it's only 1% across the these last 20 years. More importantly, investment in the urban infrastructure is also stagnant around 0.6 to 0.7% of the GDP. And if we go to the core municipal basic services, then it's only 0.4% in last 7 years, 8 years. All this data which I am presenting is taken from the various reports were prepared for the different Central Finance Commission, because we do not have a consolidated data, and we still do not have a data system which will regularly annually provide data about the municipal status of finances in municipal bodies. It's only happens every 5 years. Luckily, recently CREER prepared a report for the 15th Central Finance Commission. Before that, National Institute of Public Finance Policy and others have prepared for 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have put together that data to work out this trend analysis. Another problem in last 20 years is the shrinking space of urban local bodies. So the devolution has increased. It is stagnant at 1%, but within that, municipal own source revenue has gone down. In fact, it has gone down from 63% to 43%. Simultaneously, devolution from the state and center has increased. But if we look from the point of view of a fiscal decentralization, then definitely in last 20 years, the share of municipal own source revenue has drastically gone down. ICRI report is up to 2017-18, that is prior to the GST implementation. So till that point, it has reached to 0.43% of the GDP. That is the share of the municipal own source revenue put together all the urban local bodies. But now I feel that it must have gone even below 0.4% because after GST, Octroi got abolished in Mumbai and other places. And Maharashtra gravitates entire municipal finance data so much that municipal own source revenue, Maharashtra ULBs constitute 51% of that entire. So whatever averages I will be talking, we have to take with the pinch because these averages, only 4 states almost constitute 70% load or weightage of that entire data. So when it goes to the other parts, then urban situation is much, much worse. Even financial situation of the urban local bodies is much worse. There is a skewed state of urban finance across the state that I just mentioned. These are the structural issues, or we can say supply side issues. But the matter of the fact, or the other side of the coin, is that ULBs are not augmenting their own resources. They are not optimizing their own resources. I will come to that in detail in my presentation. Then ULBs which have capacity are not leveraging because we do not have a system of hard budgetary constraints or developmental accountability. We are not judging local bodies, what was their potential, what is their capacity, and are they living to the capacity, or they are optimizing their capacity or not. But we have a paradoxical phenomena. Almost 90% of the urban local bodies do not have capacity, even we can say 95%. But all those 5% urban local bodies, which are bestowed with the good administration, good economic base, and other some positive externalities, unfortunately, they have not been what we can say leveraging, or they are not optimizing what they can, they are not living up to their capacity. So then there is a ULB lack the capacity to borrow. That is also result of the financial issues. Then there is the inability of the ULBs to absorb the funds. And this is what capacity building I'm saying. So though fund devolution has increased, what particularly we are seeing in last 7-8 years is the year-end closing balance is mounting. So it clearly suggests that the system is not able to even consume whatever devolution is done to them, or the urban local bodies are not able to. And that's something I think should be a very big cause of concern. Not to have resources is a one thing, but to have the resources and not spending, it means you have really big capacity constraint. And then finally, there is a negligible role of PPP. 10th point I haven't mentioned here, but there is a rightly a policy of using the land value capture or value capture financing and all that. But even that is somewhere we are overrating it. There are a lot of constraints in actualizing that land as a resources or value from value-based financing. So I will just go through quickly to these slides. This PPT will be then available, whoever wants it. But the first very point, it clearly shows why that this entire thing is stagnant. It's because though the devolution by central and state government increased, during the same time, the resource augmentation by the urban local bodies, because many states during that time can abolish the octroi in last 20 years. If you can see, Gujarat abolished octroi from its municipalities in 2002, Maharashtra abolished it, then Gujarat abolished its octroi from in 2007-8 from its municipal corporation, Maharashtra followed suit around 2012-13, and then finally GST putting into this whatever somewhere octroi was still octroi was still in force. So in all, municipal revenue hasn't kept the space in terms of CAGR and all that. So devolution has increased, but overall size of the resources given for the urban infrastructure improvement is just 1% of the GDP. Story of municipal expenditure, as I earlier mentioned, is bad. In fact, in 2002, there was a deficit in the system because it was 0.96% was the resources and 1.09% was the expenditure, municipal expenditure as a percentage of the GDP. Today's situation is worse. It is 1% of the GDP is the resources, and just 0.78% of the GDP is the expenditure. And that amount in 2017-18 amounted almost more than 30,000 crore, which is a closing balance. Means the money was devolved to the urban local bodies, but remained in accounts as a closing balance and was not utilized. In last 2 years, probably little bit improvement has happened in utilization of the funds. But again, from March, we know this COVID pandemic, and though data is not available, but nobody has to just guess, expenditure is going to be much down in this year. Against all this ratio, if we compare with the developing countries, then you can see that Poland is spending 4.5% of their GDP on urban, 6% in case of South Africa, 7.4% in Brazil, not to talk of the developed countries like United Kingdom and Norway. And when this 1%, we are saying this 1% includes the metro also, which is in recent year has a huge outlay, and housing also. So these two big programs were taken. Otherwise, as I said, core basic services, that is water supply, sewage, solid waste management, road and street light, these 5 basic urban services, then the investment is just stagnant around 0.4% of the GDP in last 7-8 years. So this is the second slide, gives that kind of a data that basically not much is getting invested in urban investment, urban infrastructure. Whatever increase we are seeing is basically because in last 10 years, a lot of cities got the metro projects, and that metro is really having a big share, and also very welcoming PMY scheme, where we have taken a huge program of constructing the houses, affordable housing. So in all, central and state combined share, if you see at the last line of the slide, that is again a very concerning data, that earlier 73% urban investment was getting funded through the government of India and state government capital grants, but now that portion has gone to the 85%. So if we see, then the entire urban infrastructure investment, 85% is happening just because of the central and state devolution. So it also clearly indicates that municipal bodies are, most of the municipal bodies are in revenue deficit, not able to spare much of the money for the capital investment. And commercial finance has averaged only 4%, 3 to 4% in last 7-8 years, or overall last 20 years, we can say. And so not much of the leveraging is happening. Then third point, which I said, is a shrinking space of city finances. As I said, grants have increased at 18%. And investment in metro, as I said, has gone up from 19,000 crore to 44,000 crore. Urban housing spending has gone up from 7,000 crore to 16,000 crore. But as a result of all this, you can see that the actual municipal space, municipal infrastructure space, that is shrinking. Though there is an increased allocation, there is a not matching efforts at the ULB level. As I said, most of the ULBs do not have capacity, are not left with the tax resources, have only user charge in terms of the water. Some have introduced for the solid waste management, but then other non-tax resources also they do not have. So though outlay has increased, the fallout of it is that there is a space, or the municipal universe, municipal finance universe, that is our municipal own source revenue, that space is shrinking continuously. I earlier said that it was 0.63% of the GDP around 2002, and it has come down in 2017-18 to 0.43% of the GDP. Simultaneously, 0.45% of the GDP, and 0.43 is now a total devolution or share of the state and central, which has gone up from 25, 0.25% of the GDP. It has gone to 0.43% in last 7-8 years. The devolution is very welcoming. Sector required the money, and thankfully, central government and state governments have started giving more and more funds. Even Central Finance Commission has devolved more funds, but the funds have gone, or transfers have gone without any hard budgetary constraints. So at a ULB level, not much autonomy was given, no new tax sources has been given, and no optimization efforts were carried out. And therefore this, as I said earlier mentioned, the share of municipal owned source has declined over the years. And that is not today's phenomena. It's not last 5 or 7 years phenomenon, right from 2002. In fact, I can say there was a Renaissance period from 1996 to 2002, where actually municipal own source revenue share had increased from 0.61% of the GDP to 0.63%. Not big way, but at that time, municipal bodies were optimizing resources because at that time devolution was not so high, much less. But then as the devolution money started coming in, somewhere that focus has got missed of optimizing or increasing the municipal own source revenue. Of course, completely we can't blame the urban local bodies, because in last two decades, they lost the tax sources also. That's also a fact. So moving forward, as I earlier mentioned, cities are left with only one tax, and even that tax is not doing great. In fact, municipal tax as a percentage of the combined tax revenue of center, state and local bodies, as I said, was highest at 2.4% in 2003. It came down to 1.7%, and for last 10 years, it is stagnant at 1.8%. Local taxes share in a total tax revenue involving the center and state also. 60% of the own source revenue of the local bodies come from the property tax. And unfortunately, this property tax is one of the unaugmented source. And all reports have pointed out, way back 13th Central Finance Commission, a study was commissioned of 36 million cities. And they also concluded that what we are recovering is only 25% of the potential. After 10 years, very recently, ICRI report has also pointed out that we are just recovering 0.14% or 0.15% of GDP comes from the property tax. In developing world, in developing countries, at least 1% of the GDP comes from the property tax. So we are at just, because in last 20 years, not much property tax augmentation hasn't happened. In fact, some of the states have even taken away the property tax or has increased the exemption. Punjab gives exemption probably to the 1500 square foot plot, and any building on that is exempted from property tax. Recently, 1 or 2 years back, Maharashtra government has come out and said that all the properties up to 500 square foot size will not have a property tax. So we, on one side, we need to step up property tax revenue, because that is the real classical universal local tax having a lot of potential. Even ICRI report has recently pointed out that 60,000 crore can come from it, while at the moment only 15,000 crore or 16,000 crore are coming, all ULBs together. And if we take Gujarat and Maharashtra, which are in forerunner states, then they almost constitute more than 50–60% of the total property tax collection of India. Then in other places, it's really a very low property tax. So there is a need to look at it. So they are only having now property tax, and that to an unaugmented tax. Then there is a skewed state of city finances across India. Again, there is a huge legacy of 70 years. What we see, lot of rich cities, or in the Gujarat, Maharashtra, some in Karnataka, Hyderabad, and these have the legacy of economic development and of local government, correct? If we see that, then as I pointed out earlier, these 4 states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka, they have higher functional devolution. Naturally, then that, for example, water supply is not in municipal universe in many states. So naturally, you can't take that data as a municipal investment or like that kind of a thing. So they constitute almost 68%. So 38% population constitutes 68% weightage. Or another way we look, then 4 states here, Madhya Pradesh replaces account for 70% of the municipal tax revenue of the total municipal tax revenue in India. So there is a lot of asymmetry. And then if you look at that, the Maharashtra per capita municipal own source tax revenue is 5,730, while many states are just having less than 200 or around 300. So it's require attention. Somewhere one will have to look into it. Then property tax constitute, as I said, very low amount, but that again, property tax constitute good position in 4 states only. Rest of the thing, even it is less than 0.145% of the GSDP. So if we leave aside 2-3 states, Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, then other states are even recovering from property tax less than the national average. So a lot of asymmetry is there, which need to be addressed, because it's not like that some cities of the India should be performing well. Because if we want to make our all cities really growth engine, and we want a real entire composite development of India, then we will have to address urban issues and finance issues of all the cities in all the states. This is another dimension of the skewed municipal corporation, municipality, and Nagar Panchayat will take. Then you can see huge difference that, which is also a very natural, but only one silver lining is there. If you can see per capita transfer. So last 20 years, that inequity is getting breached. Because if you can see per capita transfer, municipal corporations are getting 2,700, but then municipalities are getting around close to that 2,581, and Nagar Panchayat 2,100. And therefore, it has breached the gap between the municipal corporations and municipalities. So that's a silver lining of Central Finance Commission devolution and the State Finance Commission devolution in last 20 years, wherein more per capita funds are given to the smaller ULBs, helping them to bridge. But again, that earlier issue remains that these smaller ULBs are so small or lack capacity that whether we are getting the value for money is again an issue. So good thing is that we are giving them higher amount compared to the bigger cities and trying to reduce that asymmetry into their finances. But then issue is of the service delivery or achieving value for money. Coming to the another side of the story, ULBs are not augmenting their own sources. Property tax is in their hand, and Economic Survey of India 2017-18 pointed out that even Bangalore and Jaipur are recovering 20% of their potential. So various studies have clearly shown, and these studies are not contemplating increase in the property tax. Even I have worked for last 20 years in a consulting field, and I have worked with the several municipal corporations as a consultant for their property tax improvement, and we achieved 2 to 3 times increase in property tax revenue without increasing single naya paisa property tax. That is feasible. Because what really crux is the coverage, exemptions, then coverage issue, and then the collection efficiency issue. If you can see that study for 13th Central Finance Commission, then it clearly shows that the collection efficiency is 37% and only 56% properties paying the tax. Even today, in many cities, the coverage of the properties under the property tax is just 50% or less than 60%. and collection efficiency around 40%. So there is a big room. Also, some places the rationalization, and another issue I have found is that there is no inflation indexation. Some municipal act revisions have provided inflation indexation, but in practical they have not been implemented. Or issue is that every 4 year regular revision of assessment has not been done. Assessment benchmarks have not been changed. As a result, what has happened now, if you really want to go for changing the property tax assessment value, I'm not talking of the rate, tax rate, but the assessment value, which has been stagnant for 20 years, 25 years, there will be a huge jump into it. So as the time is passing, property tax reforms are becoming more and more difficult, or increase is becoming more and more difficult. ULBs are not leveraging their own source revenue. As I said, there are definitely 35 to 50 municipal bodies in India which can borrow, which can leverage their funds. And with some other capacity building, to my mind, top 100 cities definitely can leverage without compromising financial sustainability or without putting away the financial prudential norms. So following financial prudential norms, I can roughly put that amount they can stand or borrow could be around 70 to 80,000 crore. But unfortunately, borrowing is just 3% or 2%. And here's the figure, latest figure, that it's only 27,000 crore is the, whatever is the total this, and 2.8%. This is in on 7 years. ICRI report shows that all municipal bodies together borrowed 27,000 crore in 8 years. And out of that, Gujarat ULBs borrowed 14,000 crore. So most of the municipal bodies are going 100% funding through their own source. So we are not fast forwarding the development. We need to bring development upfront. I'm not saying to go for a borrowing, reckless borrowing, but whatever is your capacity, whatever leveraging can be done, that should be done so that the development will come upfront, will come early, and will lead to non-financial benefits of urban infrastructure, improving the service quality, improving the quality of the life. So the main this is coming is that even municipal bonds, we are not raising municipal bonds. In all, 33 municipal bonds have happened in last 20 years, just raising 2,715 crore. Out of that, last 2 years under Smart City Mission and at the insistence of the government of India's and also providing them the incentive, another 5 ULBs have raised around 1,300 crore. In between 2006 to 2017, only 4 municipal bond happened. And just 5 days back, Ahmedabad has raised 200 crore from green bonds or green infrastructure bonds. Just 4 days back, and was oversubscribed by 5 times. That is the news I saw. So Ahmedabad is doing now 7th time. So it's possible to do the municipal bonds. You can leverage the money. But somehow that is not happening. There is a shying away phenomena, or it is also a problem of a bureaucratic will to raise the funds from the borrowing. Because when you do a market-based borrowing, you are answerable for your decisions. If it is a forced government lending, that kind of a accountability is not there. But accessing market-based borrowing can lead to some questions. Why you borrowed it this amount, why you borrowed it this interest rate, tenure can be questioned, interest rate, coupon rate given can be questioned. So somewhere that is impacting somewhere the decision making. This tells the same story. This is only a graphical. The crux of the problem is that why municipal bodies are not borrowing, because our municipal bodies, one of the indicator is that they are not credit worthy or they lack the credit rating. Of course, as I said, we have a paradox that the bodies which can have credit rating are not borrowing. That's a different thing, are not leveraging. But most of the urban local bodies, very recently, 3 years back, under Amrut, 483 cities, this was carried out, 85 cities credit rating was carried out, and only 35 cities have come in an investment grade, that is A and above. Of course, one can say that there are 160 cities above investment grade, that is B. But in India, the appetite of the Indian investors is not for the B grade bonds. Nobody invests into it. So unless until you have A grade, but it shows the opportunity that these 160, if you take a 2-3 years hand holding and you really work with their finances, many of them can be brought into A zone. That is but we need to have that kind of a program whereby we can bring these cities which are in an investment grade, but not the high investment grade. But still the question will remain of a bureaucratic and political will of leveraging the funds. If we look at the smart cities, then out of 100, only 21 cities have A grade or investment grade rating. And even they haven't borrowed or they haven't leveraged. Coming to this big problem, which is there right from the beginning, but has got accentuated in last 7 years. You can see the data that, and this is 2010 onwards, when the JNURM reached to the peak of it. So the maximum devolution started on the JNURM, and coming up to 2017-18, as I said, money lying unused, which was devolved to the urban local bodies. Because you can see a paradox. On one side, 90% of the municipal bodies are dependent more than 80% for their revenues, and for urban infrastructure, 85%. This 32,000 or 39,000 crore surplus clearly indicates that the local bodies which received funds under the Smart City Mission or under the Amrut or other these things are not being able to spend. This was not the phenomena earlier. If you will see, even in 2009, the expenditure was 1.09% of the GDP. And at that time, municipal resource space was just 1% of the GDP. So there was a deficit in the system in a one way. Municipal bodies were either leveraging or this, but now, and the answer lies in the little bit data which is available about the Smart City Mission as per latest annual report of the Ministry of Housing, that around 30,000 crore must have got spent by the March 2020. That is the end of 5 years. Of course, April 2020 onwards, not much of the spending must have happened because of the each city busy in COVID. But even if we take that 30,000 crore against the 2,05,000 crore rupees total projects identified or proposed under Smart City, the percentage comes at 15% utilization. Some figures given and take, we add, then still it is not more than 20% of the and that is at the end of the 5th year of the Smart City Mission. Same thing in terms of the Amrut, which covers other cities up to 1 lakh population, other 400 cities. And there also it's come around 10%, even if data must be in pipeline, not reported on all that, it still doesn't go beyond 15% or 10%. So somewhere there is a big problem that money is not getting spent. We need to do the capacity building of municipal bodies. Role of PPP is still negligible because there are supply side constraints. The main important problem is that the first go is not given to the PPP. So we need to come out with certain kind of a condition, certain kind of benchmarks that if project is of this nature, if project is of this size, then the first attempt should be done for the PPP. And then if it doesn't work, you can always go for EPC. Here, directly most of the urban local bodies, again, PPP is a subject to the scrutiny, correct? So it's very easy to go for EPC, conventional way of contracting. And so even not leveraging is happening in terms of the PPP. Yes, there in last 3-4 years under Smart City Mission, 82 projects worth of 3,704 crore has been awarded, correct? But again, they are against the 15,000 crore which has been proposed. So things are not moving in terms of PPP. It requires certain certain facilitation we need to do, but at the same time, huge capacity enhancement, capacity building will have to be done. And there is a weak counterpart capacity on the entrepreneur side also, in project development, regulation, risk taking. Somewhere we are transferring entire risk to the private player, or that becomes the attitude or that kind of a thing. Because I have seen many PPP projects, somewhere that, and in fact, our late finance minister, Arun Jaitley ji, had also said that it's not a right thing to transfer entire risk on a private player, and that won't work much. There has to be a fair play, but capacity is lacking on both sides. We have great examples of PPP when it comes to the big national, big ticket infrastructure, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the urban level, that those small PPP player, or we need to do the bundling of the urban services so that we can give a right kind of a ticket size for a big player to come into urban sector. Also, these are the point which I wanted to put forward. I very much like this statement in Economic Survey of India, which says that the cities like state must compete with each other to unleash dynamism. Competitive federalism, India must add competitive sub-federalism. Absolutely on the spot, and I really love this statement. Right from that day, I use it for quotation. And it further goes on saying cities that are entrusted with the responsibilities, empowered with the resources, and encumbered by the accountability can become effective vehicles for unleashing dynamism, so that to competitive federalism, India can add and rely on competitive sub-federalism. Unfortunately, all these three things are missing. I can sum up saying that what is the problem with our system is our urban local bodies are not entrusted with the responsibilities, are not empowered with the resources, and are not encumbered by the accountability. I will just take 5 minutes to my mind, what is the way forward. See, what ICRI report is that says that we need to step up the resources in the urban sector to overcome our urban infrastructure and other problem. Dr. Soumyadip ji also said that. Only my addition was that, and ICRI has said earlier report also, that high power committee report, it should be somewhere around 2% by 2020. Even 15th Central Finance Commission and other reports are also indicating that we should reach to the 2% of the GDP by 2025 or further. Now, how, from where that can come? Then here is a bifurcation that GOI should go up to X level, state transfer should go to the 70%, but most importantly, ULB's contribution has to go up to 8%. So massive capacity building. And for that, then naturally we'll have to give additional resources. Only property tax cannot bring, even if we bring these, then property tax revenue can go up to 0.6% of the GDP or 0.7% of the GDP. And down the line, 10 years, we don't know what way things may change by that time. But then we can hope of 1% of the GDP, which is the average in the developing countries. So 1% of the GDP coming from the property tax may happen by 2030. But initially target could be 0.6% of the GDP. So we need to give them we need to find out ways to give more local resources. If required a constitutional amendment, of course it will be a big reform, but somewhere they getting additional resources, or without constitutional reform, other new kind of urban based tax sources. And then there has to be a augmenting of the revenue potential, whatever that exists, by all the local bodies, giving them the accountability, hard budgetary constraint. We need to do that. Then we need to use index of the local revenue for overcoming that interstate this. At the moment, we do not have financial performance or performance of the raising local resources as one of the condition into earlier 13 Central Finance Commission, 12th Central Finance Commission tried, but last two commissions have taken only population and area as a interstate distribution condition for releasing the Central Finance Commission funds. Somewhere we need to factor in, otherwise that anomaly, that asymmetry won't go. And it has to go for the larger good of the entire urban system of India. You can't just only have some 10, 15 cities of 2-3 states, 2-3 states doing urban finance correctly. For entire India, all the states will have to do, so that that skewed urban finances in states has to go. For that, index can be introduced. Then GOI grant need to be linked to the own source revenue improvement. So hard budgetary constraint come in. Central Finance Commissions have tried. 15 Central Finance Commission, 1 year suggestion also indicates that they want to link it to the local revenue increase. Policy and regulatory enablers for borrowing and pragmatic efforts has to come in. Then if we take these measures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of earlier slides, then naturally credit rating will improve, credit standing will improve. Then what will be the issue is of a capacity building and bureaucratic and political will for leveraging the resources at a local level. So then that would be and then leaking the bucket, that is improving the cost efficiency or improving the entire project management, improving the financial management, budgetary management, somewhere bringing in the FRBM, which is there for the state level and the national level, but to bring it at the local level. And then role of PPP to need to be enhanced by series of structural facilitations and the capacity building at both end, and creating a system wherein private sector would believe you and me knowing this state of finance, even if we are keen, we will not do a PPP with the urban local bodies. Very recently, 3 days back, Professor Om Mathur, most respected urban finance expert and the most senior one, he has luckily said on this line, because whatever today I said, I have also given same lecture 3-4 months back, and he is absolutely saying same thing, that bring in hard budgetary constraints. And he goes with his experience adding that enough global evidence suggests that the transfers do not function under condition of soft budgetary constraint. So in last 20 years, we did increase the transfers, but those transfers were with the soft budgetary constraints, and actually they haven't improved. And rather, we have seen that the local governments, as he rightly said, if it is with the soft budgetary constraint, transfers are with the soft budgetary constraint, then local government operated suboptimally in matter of resource raising and service delivery. And exactly what he's saying is the message of last 20 years. Devolution transfers has increased, but they were with the soft budgetary constraint, and has resulted to the suboptimal function of the local government in terms of resources and service delivery. He is also talking of an index of the local revenue efforts with substantial weightage, while interstate distribution of the grant in aids, dedicated grant in aid window to the ULB to implement other functions which are in concurrent list. That is what he's saying. So economic and social development, urban forestry, and protection of environment. In fact, air pollution is the new linkage taken by the 15th Central Finance Commission 1-year report, where they have linked devolution to the municipal bodies of CFC grant to the improving air quality and water quality. So they have linked it to the environmental concerns. There is a really dearth of a real municipal finance, and because we do not have data, we are not constantly every year able to monitor the municipal finance, nor government is able to do, nor academicians and practitioners are able to do, and not even local bodies themselves are able to mirror or look into it, that what is wrong. So what he's suggesting very rightly is a Reserve Bank of India every year bringing out a state of municipal finances report, like the way it brings about the state finances. So we need to create that system. And finally, he is suggesting constitutional amendment in another direction, that is changing the article 280(3)(c), which says that you are for the Central Finance Commission, where he opines, or he suggests that there should be access to the divisor pool and consequently a place in the country's intergovernmental fiscal framework. So I would like to end here. I know I have taken a lot of time, but thanks again to the organizers. And I hope I am able to bring in a comprehensive picture of city finances, not dismal one, studied with the positive things. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insightful analysis. So it's really brings out some of the core issues regarding the municipal finance. And as you have rightly mentioned, that the municipal revenues are obviously some of the silver linings you have also mentioned. But all we know about the dismal situations that currently the urban local bodies are nowadays in. You mentioned about the municipalities' own source revenue have going down in the recent years. And also you mentioned that the devolution has been increasing. So you mentioned about the 85% of the funding for the urban infrastructure are getting funded nowadays by the central government and the state government. And the most crucial, and also you mentioned about the problem about the property tax. That's the mainstay of the municipal own source revenue. And it suffers from various problems, various structural problems. And I think you also mentioned about some of the figures like 16,000 crore that can come from the property tax revenue, but unfortunately nowadays the figure stands around 15,000 to 16,000 crores only. So it's a gross underutilization of one of the most buoyant sources which is available at the city level. So that's really a matter of serious policy concern. So and most importantly, what is most striking is that the urban local bodies, they are not optimizing their own source revenue. Whatever revenues that they have, they are not even utilizing. So and the urban local bodies are not being able to absorb the fund. So these are very, very crucial. And apart from this, we all know the problems like these problems of municipal bond and the public-private partnerships and all these things. These are serious problem. But what is actually very crucial is that the municipalities, they are not being able to utilize the money that they have. So you mentioned about mentioned about the smart cities mission. So in the context of smart cities mission, even in its 5th year, only 15% of the funds under the smart cities mission have been utilized. So again, this is a very, very dismal figure if we compare it with any standard indicator. Okay. And also there are some problems related to the this you rightly pointed out about since the devolution has been going up, the component of devolution, the dependence of the municipal bodies, city governments on the funds available from the higher levels of governments are going up. So this hard budgetary constraints is really important because even after there are huge dependence with soft budgetary constraint that actually made very little difference to the city finances. So obviously, if we want to make a change in our strategy, because these municipalities, they must rethink their financing strategies. So if we want to do that and do that in a meaningful way, given the dependence of the urban local bodies on the grant component from the higher levels of government, this hard budgetary constraint is extremely crucial. And also you mentioned about there is no I should say that municipalities and actually they need to get their basics rights. They need to augment their own source revenue, because only then they will they will make themselves bankable to the investors, so that it will be easier for them when they access the sources which are available from the private resources. For example, a lot of discussion have been going on the public-private partnership, the municipal bond market. But the basic problem with this for the municipalities to access this or to utilize these resources is that their projects are not bankable. They are not credit worthy, as you rightly pointed out. So municipalities need to get their basic things right. So they need to financially, and also there is a lot of scope for financial. For example, you mentioned about the property tax. There is a huge scope for improving the property tax, the revenue collection from the property tax. If I think you mentioned about just by for example, you mentioned about the lack of indexation, the poor coverage, poor collection efficiency, but all these problems can be fixed. Okay, so yes, it's very important. It's very important for all these things. So before going into the question answer session, because we have some lot of interesting questions which are coming up in our QA box, let me first invite, because we have with us Mr. Samir Unhale, who is the Mr. Samir Unhale, who is basically the Joint Commissioner of the Municipal Administration Maharashtra. Yes.
Yes. Dr. Yes, Soumyadeep. I
Yes.
think Samir sir, are you there?
Yeah.
Sir was
Arjuna.
traveling, so yes.
Oh, so okay,
Oh,
okay. So
But Samir sir, if you want to come in, yes, just for some
yes.
remarks.
So I just want to I just request Mr. Samir Unhale sir just to come in and make some of his brief comments on this situation, because it's again a rare opportunity for us to have someone who is an urban practitioner, who is actually administrating the entire municipal system. So please, if you have come in and then just have some of your comments on the city finance.
Thank you. I think Ravi ji must be complimented for a very interesting. Also, someone who will nitty-gritties very well. So, thank you, Ravi ji. It was very good. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, and I think regarding there is one interesting relation between the city finance and the municipal finance. I think for that cause, I think is trying to prepare a methodology of trying to identify what would be a city GDP. In fact, that was one of the projects we did, and we were told that there is no known methodology how to calculate the city GDP in the first place. So one very important project was done by IMPRI. I think they have come up with some solution. And then if we look at the percentage of that city GDP, so to say, and then municipal finance, many interesting features start emerging. Of course, as I say, as we know, it's a local self-government, so it ought to have a larger degree of public accountability, and of course, is also a part of a political process in the city level, at the city level. So this this is a this has a very so one take or just a response would be the principles of private finance will not be applicable to the principles of public finance, which is being done right now at city level. That probably there will have to be some more out-of-box thinking or innovative thinking on the issue of financing this municipal functions. Of course, it connects with the ability to raise taxes that, as we know, are that one of the direct tax is property tax, and the public willingness to go on for direct tax is always limited. It may be even the it may be the central or the state or the city level for that matter. So this indirect taxations options in city level were limited. It was essentially octroi, and in fact, Maharashtra and Gujarat were one of the states, which had a very strong background in octroi. And after that, so the one thing is that the flexible sources of indirect taxations are almost very limited actually. And the way Indian taxpayers tend to respond, they are more open on indirect taxation than direct taxation. So probably property tax, yes, it was very rightly pointed out by Raviji that a lot of things need to be done. And I'm sure a lot of efforts at various state levels are happening. There are very interesting stories also coming up. And hopefully it becomes a trend at a national level in which this something which can be charged gets realized into the municipal coffers. Secondly, I think what's happening is I don't know. I mean, if you see other countries, how is the city finance in other countries? It was very interesting. I remember the slide of Raviji, in which the Brazil and other OECD countries were stating that the number of the amount collected is substantially higher there. So, I mean, maybe we could go for another round of shall I say, an academic thought. It's just an academic thought. That probably, in fact, it was also, I think, similar lines mentioned by Om Mathurji also, that probably whatever indirect taxations are getting collected or in that city, some share of that taxation can be given to the city as a matter of not as a grant or a wish, but as a divisible pool for the city. So I think that can substantially help, because if some city is performing well, if the economics of the city is fantastic, it is generating tremendous amount of funds or taxes at the both central and state level. But then some part of that tax could be given to the city also. So that could be one of the options which could be tried. And I think the third take on this thing was that, frankly speaking, the traditional, I think land monetization was touched by Raviji very importantly, because the lands which are owned by municipalities are huge and very precious, so to say. Somehow, methodology is still to come up, how exactly to capture that. So I think a lot of scope is there for financing, I mean, the innovation in financing, even in land monetization. And of course, beyond the bond and the other market, a lot of international finance is supposedly available. It might be, of course, in bonds, then maybe climate bonds are coming up, and various other international financing is happening. We do get very often such references that, some sovereign funds, other funds are willing to come up in urban infrastructure in India. So some methodology for that, some framework, some guidelines would be helpful to change the way municipal finance is happening. I think we require some major important changes very soon, because the pressures will always be there, and a lot of innovation needs to happen in this municipal finance, as well as the other new streams of finance which ideally could be given to the cities, for that matter. I'm sorry, I'm traveling, so I'm not able to talk very much, but thanks a lot. And it was Raviji. Thank you, Ravikanji. It was a wonderful thing to listen. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Samirji. Listening to you, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, and your comments are really good. And yes, but even giving certain share of, say, GST or income tax, which is the case in other developed countries, we will have to evolve that kind of a framework. So it may happen in future, but as Mathur sir has said, and you rightly said, that can be worked out. Or some other way. In fact, urban development tax, which was developed by in lieu of octroi, I personally felt it was a very good experiment, and it was taking away all the problems of the octroi, and it was much good, but story was different. But some of those features, taking it, new tax can be designed. Of course, one will have to examine whether now this new constitution amendment, because of GST, puts end to all consumption-based indirect taxes. If that is the so, then one will have to do the constitution amendment. But if there is a room, then especially city-level urban tax can be designed. But cities need to be provided indirect tax based on a consumption and income. Otherwise, city finances will not be broad-based. It will be always a one-pole taint, like property tax. And property tax is not based on ability to pay principal. So always there will be a resistance and inherent inbuoyancy with the property tax. So thank you again, Samirji.
Well, related to this, I think regarding these new sources, which you rightly mentioned, Richard Burr, the famous public finance expert, in the context of Indian cities, he mentioned specifically about two taxes which can be utilized to augment the finance of the municipal cities. And one is the payroll tax, and another is the turnover tax. It's basically a sort of a variant of income tax. So, but again, these taxes are very much distortive in nature, and it may cause significant interjurisdictional inefficiencies. So what do you think? Do you think that these are at all suitable in the Indian context, specifically given the importance of for the municipal bodies to search for the new revenue handles or new revenue instruments? So how far these sort of taxes like the payroll tax or the turnover tax? So how
In
far?
fact, no, I agree, and it is possible to reduce its regressivity. Say payroll tax is our professional tax. In fact, professional tax was actually was with the municipal bodies. It is the state governments which appropriated. We all pay from our salary professional tax to state government. It's a payroll tax. And now Gujarat has given back professional tax, not from the salary income people, but all the professionals. So 10 years back, when they cancelled the OCTRAI, in Gujarat, now urban local bodies are getting sizable amount from professional tax. But there is a problem that there is a 30-year-old limit in the constitution of maximum 2,500 professional tax. For example, since 2007-8, I am paying to Baroda Municipal Corporation 2,000 rupees professional tax, I being a professional, correct? But that limit is there in constitution of 2,500 rupees, which was set some 30 years back, which need to be revised, and it should go on a percentage basis. Because again, there will be a requirement of constitution amendment after 20 years. So somewhere it has to, and many commissions have recommended, even again, 15th Central Finance Commission or before that, 14th Central Finance Commission is suggesting. So payroll tax is there, the name is different, correct? We all salaried people are paying that payroll tax to the city, to the state government. It originally, as per Lord Ripon Charter, belonged to the municipal bodies, professional tax. So even if that is given back to the municipal bodies will have a big amount. Coming to turnover tax, I just mentioned urban development tax, which was designed in lieu of OCTRAI, was by Maharashtra was turnover tax. Just like a service tax, this earlier version before the GST, we had value added tax. Like that, it was turnover tax. But there we will have to examine whether now that room is available or not. Or there can be, as it is there in other developed countries, there can be a piggybacking cess on GST. Now that will meet the public finance condition. Of course, that will require maturity. Just less than 1%, 0.1% to 0.9% could be a cess, and each city then take that decision. Then public finance basic tenet that each city has to provide for cost of its, should fund cost of its development. So there are different ways, but before that we need to put house in order. This can come 5 years later. First, we need to put in order their accounting system, their project management system, their financial management system, and coming out with the financial indices and linking incentive grant or the performance-based grant to the revenue improvement. So whatever potential you have, first improve it. That kind of a culture will come of optimizing your own sources. That culture is missing. And particularly last 20 years, enhanced devolution, though well-intentioned, and it was required, well-required and well-intentioned, but it has, as Professor Mathur has said, and global experience shows that it has led to the suboptimal efforts at the local body level, and that we need to address. So giving tax sources, to my mind, can be a second stage. First, giving them hand-holding, support, and capacity building, and linking it to the hard budgetary constraint, means to the indices, to the performance, release of funds, and then helping them, of course, not just leaving them on their own to improve, but that massive program should come, and by which one should assess each city, what is its potential, financial potential, economic potential. Having got that benchmark, somebody has asked that question, what can be indices? One indice is that what is the year-on-year improvement in the revenue of the local sources by that municipality. So such indices can be undertaken. Or the way we did the financial requirement assessment, development requirement assessment, we can take an economic assessment. And we can also do that when you have worked for the city GDP. We can work out that, and then share of city finances or city efforts into the city GDP. how much is the local body is achieving, and not only achieving in the context of its potential, because every city has a different economic base. Again, we cannot have a one thumb rule, but we need to, but nobody has done that kind of analysis that what is the potential of this city, correct? The way I said that if we take top 35 or 50 cities, the leveraging potential could be 70-80,000 crore, correct? But today outstanding borrowing is just 2% of it on their balance sheet. So we need to have new indices and a new way to look at the performance, particularly in fiscal framework and in service delivery of the local bodies.
Just given this, you just mentioned about the differences in the city's capacity. So do you think that the small cities in India, because nowadays there are lots of small cities which are coming in India, okay, and they are going to make they can also be considered, or they can also act as the growth nodes. But do you think what are the specific problems which these smaller cities are facing as far as the municipal finances is concerned?
See, in the interest of time, Dr. Joshi.
Entire devolution, capital infrastructure devolution is limited to 500 cities. Even if we take Amrut and smart cities.
Yes.
Rest of the cities are getting only revenue grant. We have 4,000 cities less than 1 lakh population and 3,000 cities less than 50,000 population, that is 2011 census. In fact, they are not part of real serious municipal finance framework. We have 125 cities above 5 lakh and 300 as per Amrut. So Amrut scheme was absolutely in right direction, catching all these 500 cities which are above 1 lakh population. And so for the first time, these small cities also started getting some grant and some conditionalities and some improvement focus. We need to work on these 500 cities very intensively. And rest of the smaller cities, again, at the moment, they don't have any kind of allocation, capital investment kind of a thing. So if you will go for a small city less than 50,000 population, of course, their revenue is coming 10% of their entire requirement. 90% comes as a salary and operating issue. Very less money is in the system. So actually, when we will increase from 1% to 2% GDP, 1% should go to the smaller towns to improve. Of course, there we will have to go for a right kind of a technological option. See, sewage treatment, underground sewage system should not be there in 4,000 cities. That is what I personally feel. Because underground sewage system is so costly. One can do this with the sockpit and the FSTP, fecal FSTPs rather than STPs based. So somewhere we will have to take a right kind of technological options so that cost will not be enormous, development cost will not be. So simplified technological options for developing the urban services and a dedicated capital funding and entire capacity building program.
Yes, Arjun.
Yes, yes. Soumyadeep sir, I was saying that in the interest of time, should we collect all the questions?
Yes, yes.
And then, yes, Joshi sir can answer. Simi, why don't you go forward?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ravikant Joshi, Dr. Soumyadeep, and Dr. Arjun. Good evening from India, sir, and good morning to you. Sir, I am a political scientist by training, and I found your presentation thoroughly insightful. Thank you very much for this. My question actually is regarding the state of municipal borrowing, which actually enables the financing of capital investments. But in India, and in fact, this also helps in deepening of the decentralized polity. But in India, we are still far away from this. Could you throw light on why is this? And in any case, is it yet another case of politics trumps all initiatives? And in fact, those at the receiving end are the people who are left to fend for themselves. So how do you see this connection, and what is the way forward? Thank you very much, sir.
See, as I said, we haven't worked out. In fact, in India, we do not have any financial ranking of the cities. Correct. We have the different ranking. Look at Swachhata Excellence Award or Swachhata Sarvekshan. It has done miracles. Correct. We started a competition among the cities. This Swachhata Sarvekshan, which is carried out as a part of a Swachh Bharat mission. So that kind of created a competitive world in terms of the Swachhata. That kind of indices, we do not assess our cities, and there is no system of assessing independently our ULBs on financial performance. So there can be one indices, what is your borrowing potential and how much borrowing you have leveraged. It is not there. I know, I don't want to name the cities. The city which can stand to 10,000 crore, 20,000 crore or 5,000 crore rupees borrowing, keeping in account all the financial prudential norms, I know that that city have just 0.5% or zero borrowing outstanding on the balance sheet. And that city funding 100% and having huge annually revenue surplus, operative surplus, OR ratio 0.7. So all indices so favorable, but not borrowing. Also, there are supply side constraint, means sense we have ad hoc. All the municipal acts across the India provide for power to borrow, but with the state government sanction. In act also, we haven't set up the prudential norms that if you meet these conditions, you are allowed to borrow. Of course, with the information to the state government. So we do not have a rule-based system. We have a case-to-case sanction, correct? Even that doesn't deter. Basically, there is no accountability, development accountability or financial accountability kind, and that competition is not there. Nowhere we announce that this number one in financial performance. We got in Swachhata now. We have livability index last year coming in. It's a good movement, a move. But somewhere we need the way the Sorin rating is published for each and every country. We can adopt for our at least top 500 cities. And Government of India did that effort. It has done the credit rating. Of course, I personally feel that credit rating is not a comprehensive financial ranking mechanism, because credit rating takes into account whether investor funds are safe or not. And it won't take into account the Samir Unhale was making a point of public finance other aspect. So PIFA guideline or PIFA indicator. In fact, 10 years back, I worked for the UN Habitat to develop a financial ranking indicator, and we had 3 international experts together submitted a report of 30 financial indicators for assessing or for analyzing performance of the municipal bodies. And precisely that Professor Mathur is requesting that RBI should take up that and come out every year on a state of municipal finance, or somebody in India, why not IMPERI, take up that every year we start a municipal ranking kind of a system. But financial ranking has to come, and that competitive world has to be created today. And therefore I have specifically brought that point that even though we have those municipal bodies have capacity, they are not leveraging, because nobody is asking. Nobody asking a question. Fine, you did 1,000 crore rupees development, but what was your capacity? You were capable of doing 3,000 crore rupees investment. You have done 1,000 crore. That question is not asked.
So just we have 3-4 questions in the Q&A box. So just
Dr. Somadip,
yes.
Until you collect that, should I also ask you questions? Or
yes, please go ahead.
Until then, yes, I don't think in Facebook, but for time, rightly, I would first like to congratulate Dr. Joshi for putting forth such an elaborate presentation. I've been working with him, but so many data and many things sir has tried to present really in a very nuanced manner. And as the situation sees, sir has really shown us that 20 years before was really a good period for our urban finances, 2001 to there the percentage rates are really up. I quickly wanted to touch upon few things. Sir really gave a very very new sort of statistics where he's also mentioning that how between big cities, medium and small cities, how the expenditure or other things per capita is shifting. I was doing this exercise with New Delhi Municipal Council. And as you know, that's the Lutyens zone. So that figure was going around 2 lakh. So this is 5,000, 10,000. That also differences. And as sir has also mentioned that the story of averages and what is coming without Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Gujarat. So these states given together, they are our, 2/3 of our urban power. So in terms of that, how our taxes are also looking, and when sir really said that 1% is the outlay, and 0.78%, 6% is the utilization. So there also these urbanized states have a very heavy weightage, and when we look at our eastern or northern or northwest or northeast province, or then the cities, then the numbers are really deplorable. I would say $10-20, not even to talk with someone on that front. Having said that, we also have gift city. We also have new cities coming up, and but sir is really highlighting that we also have sensor cities. Perhaps we'll discuss that someday other, that what is the utility of it. I see none, because they are the part of satellite and agglomeration economies, which sir has highlighting and rightly also suggesting, and I would say propagating and professing that the bundling of services can really be done. And that is something I think the leadership should take it very seriously, because as sir is mentioning, that Professor Om Mathur is mentioning, he is also advocating that the whole purpose of SPV, we really constituted 2015-16, 2-3 years we debated, and now sir is presenting that only 15% is money spent. China spends around 6 lakh crore year on year for like decade now on their urban infrastructure. And we do not even have that yearly target for us for 5-6 years. Amrut, we have 1.5 lakh crore, smart cities 2.5 lakh crore. These are the outlay, but the expenditure really is so much down. Property tax, sir is saying that we are collecting 15,000 crore, 18,000 crores, but by, I would say in 10 years, we can really 5 times, 10 times double it. But I would really like to point out what from a bureaucrat's point of view, Mr. Samir Unhale is raising, that no one wants to pay tax. That's the reality. In fact, the political economy is so strong that we only see the reversal of rate, or what the New Delhi does the best. It will increase to some amount and then decrease few. So in average it goes up, but that reform is really not helping. So do you think the smart cities push in the SPV is not working? What should be the way ahead? Should the new greenfield cities really show the India this new thing? Because with this structure, that thing is really not missing. And should the new way also be from a central pool? For example, states are also getting from many of the funds. So one nation, one tax, that is what we are envisaging, and not as a grant, but also I would say as, I don't know what kind of processes can be developed that cities have some direct autonomy over some of the grant which they can rely on, and really help them to have their credit ratings. Other than that, sir, in your experience, because you do have a lot, so what is the role of SUDA, State Urban Development Authority? I see all the states and they controlling most of the city. And as you're rightly mentioning, there are, I would say, smart cities are the one very prominent and effective cities. Other just linger around them, or SUDA takes care of it. So how does that work out? And then, sir, Dr. N.K. Singh, the 15th Finance Commission, also now raising the point that all the suggestion with the ICRIER study and others, sir, you are also mentioning, that this cannot be business as usual, and something new things has to be done. Especially when, sir, you are mentioning that city is really doing the duty of just having sanitation, but really, I would say not. the plight of the worker or sanitation worker there, and in contracts, a lot of things going on. So, sir, during this COVID period, also these projects are having a revenue foregone. How do you see the terms of infrastructure financing or financing going ahead? Where should our focus be in terms of resilience and having our capacity built? But sir, in fact, for the last decade, we have been developing capacity so many of times. In fact, that is a continuous process of capacity building. Once your capacity is built, then now you have to revisit that. So in your terms, what can be solution A, B, C, so that we have that sustained form? I had few more questions, but sir, I will stop here. But yes, how can we leverage the land monetization? China is doing really so great. So does our development authority has to be more effective with the state, with the city government? Is that something which can be done? Metro is able to do it in Delhi. Many places, commercial angles are coming. And then, so what will be, we are mentioning a lot of points that this ranking or this indices. In this age of data architecture or data smart cities, we have real-time information. So should we really move in some that retrogressive thing also, or but also see or have means that cities are equipped or rather handhold to have these measures for I would say accountability or real-time data analysis, so that or reporting. What is your view? Many of the European cities, you also must be knowing, sir, are going towards that. And should finally I would say RERA or other thing, I think some other time. But really, what can be the real Atmanirbhar smart cities push for India? Sir, over to you. Very hard. Samedeep, sir, you can take up and we can have more questions. Dr. Joshi can choose to answer any. Yes, thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sir, I was saying that, yes, more question you can add. Then we can have.
How much time we have?
Okay.
Sir, I think we have 10 minutes.
Okay. So
And
because
then
we have asked a lot of many questions, or we can have another session next time. Let me answer this. What could be 1, 2, 3? As earlier also I said, one size fit all will not work in India. Also, city is like a living organism, correct? Each city has a different personality, different capacities, and different potential and different problem. Whether you ask SUDA or whether there should be XYZ organization, I'm not per se against the institutional fragmentation. What really should be is that delivery, who is most capable of doing it and how it can be done. So all different permutation and combinations one should adopt, but one should take a city as a one city. There can be a development authority, there can be a city parastater, like if we take say Bangalore, there is a city parastater, Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Board is there, Bangalore Development Authority is there, then Bangalore Municipal Corporation is there. I'm not saying give back to development authority to the municipal corporation or give back water supply and sewerage function to the this, but take as a Bangalore whole, and then what is Bangalore potential? Only we have calculated in JNURM or in other places what is the requirement of Bangalore, but what is the real potential of the Bangalore in economic terms, in delivery terms, and what are the stumbling blocks? So each and every study, the way we sometimes no schools have in 10th or 9th standard student assessment, psychological assessment, where he should go, what career he should take. Somewhere we need to take each and every city individually, look at it, what are its capacity, what are the organization, and what we can have, what way we can have symbiotic. So I'm no way going by earlier, some of people would say that just give back the development authorities to the urban local bodies, make urban local bodies one powerful super institution. No, what we require in this today's world is taking a city as a whole view. What are the different institutions? What are their role? What are their problems? And what are their stumbling block? And then assessing them and then working out a plan for them and making accountable to them for that. So see, this is your requirement. This we will provide you. This is your capacity. This is you will have to leverage. This is your potential, and working out for that city the covenants, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, working out a plan and then monitoring on a city level basis. Unfortunately, whether it is a smart city proposal, the way it was worked, or this action plan was prepared under the Amrut, or earlier in Zain URM, luckily I had a chance of preparing the city development plan, smart city proposal. They are somewhere one-sided and sometimes one organizing. So SUDA has a role where it can play. Some states do not have SUDA, but it's not. Earlier I showed that if let me take 1 minute and give you example. In India, water supply get managed 5 ways. In Gujarat and Maharashtra, directly municipal bodies are managing water supply. Then there are city parastatal like Chennai Water Supply Board, your Hyderabad Water Supply Board. Then there are, or Bangalore Water Supply Board, Delhi Jal Board. So cities water is managed by separate parastatal city level. Then there are state parastatal, Karnataka Urban Water Supply and Drainage Board, Tamil Nadu Drainage Board, UP Jal Nigam, like that state parastatals are there. And the fourth aspect, where the public health engineering department of state government manages the water supply and sewerage of the cities. So what really is mattering? Not the organization. Though organizations are different, the service level is equally same. And the financial potential is not augmented by, so whether it is a public health engineering department, or whether it is a state parastatal, whether it is a city parastatal, whether it is a management by the municipal corporation, and some municipal corporation, for example, Maharashtra Act provides for a separate ring fence budget for the water supply and sewerage. So in Gujarat also water supply is managed by the municipal corporation, but that ring fence system is not there. But Mumbai, Pune, all they have a separate budget in the municipal act for the water supply. No? All these different arrangements, but all are working at a LCM, lowest common denominator. What really is missing is what are the service level standards, accountability to deliver that, and in order to develop, deliver those service level benchmarks, what needs to be done? Identifying those things, what resources are required for that, how much capacity ULB has, what is its accountability to raise it, and how much this should be provided to that city or that organization. So that way somewhere we will have to take an approach, very basic fundamental approach. First, putting the house in order means entire planning and this in order, creating a symbiotic relationship with all the organizations which are working at a city level, taking city as an individual, the way we will do a personality development of an individual, correct? Assessing his capacities, assessing his opportunities, what kind of a capacity. So we need to take that kind of a individual approach, because each city is a different living organization, and then it will become Atmanirbhar, because all those institutions should be empowered. I earlier said those things. They should be empowered with the responsibility functions and accountable, and enough autonomy and resources should be given. Then we'll look at the solving the structural problems, giving them more resources, what new resource can be designed, all that. But first we need to, take, and that was the approach, but somewhere that got missed, and it become one-sided, only trying to know what is the expenditure requirement. No, not only what expenditure requirements. So we need to look at the entire holistic development of a city, and that kind of a reports we will have to prepare, and the action plan, and then accountability, and then monitoring. Coming to your data system. Yes, we are in a world of a real-time data, but where is the data? Which city is putting data into the real-time basis? Because we have PFMS, so we have central government real-time databases, and therefore 15th Central Finance Commission 1 year report has suggested integrating municipal bodies with the PFMS of the government. So that is required. At the moment, entire municipal system is offline. It is not part of the state budget. It is not part of central budget. Even a gram panchayat or a block or taluka or district development is a part of an entire government system, correct? So therefore, government will be able to say that in particular district, X amount has expenditure has happened. We have district level data of employment, non-employment, everything, but cities are offline in database. Even Reserve Bank of India doesn't monitor or doesn't have the data. For example, if we want to know how much total borrowing all ULBs have done, we do not have that kind of a data points by even Reserve Bank of India, and Reserve Bank of India will not be able, because at the moment borrowing by municipal bodies is put into miscellaneous or other categories. So it's not separately culled out. So therefore, Professor Mathur, he has written only one sentence, but it means that that entire database system which you are talking, for that even 15th Central Finance Commission has come on record and asked Government of India and state government to integrate municipal bodies financial data with the state finances. Entire movement, all our 4,500 municipal bodies are standalone offline municipal bodies. Even Government of India has published that 30,000 crore will be the spend, but they are not in position to provide. They have data, each and every paisa, that how much they have devolved to each and every city. The city, so on website of Smart City Mission, you will find that how much money has been given to each ULB, but how much actually has been spent by that ULB, that data is offline.
Okay.
So we need to put our basic systems in place, which have all missing links. So one is the kind of, as I said, Atmanirbhar, or as using that word, we need to treat that each city as a Atmanirbhar component or a unit, and need to work out a plan for that. The way for any individual we will do. So one size fit all will not work. It will require a massive effort, but that can be done. We have consultant, we have everybody who can do it. Second, we need to create this, say city GDP we do not have. So we do not know how a particular city has, what kind of economic base it has, what kind of economic potential it has, and economically how cities. We have state GDP, even district GDP we are able to work, but not the city GDP. So somewhere we need to put this, say next 5 years, if we can put all these things first come first, and then unleash second level of the reforms, that would be better way to do it.
Yes, I think IMPRI has been contributing to this extent a bit, because IMPRI has already did a study on how to estimate the city level GDP for Thane city. I think I'm Arjun, am I right? Thane city.
Yes, yes, yes.
The GDP estimations, city GDP estimations, and also we are preparing a report for Ranchi city, where we are dealing with this service standard related issues that indices which we are studying, analyzing, and it will be by so some of the stuff which you have been mentioning in your talk, some of them are tasked by IMPRI. And so I think, should we continue, Arjun, or just
So if you,
what
yes,
is the time?
No, sir, we can have the
Okay, just
one to 2 minute regards. And sir, your voice is breaking.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, actually, I'm having a connectivity problem. So could you please just mention some of the questions which are posed in the Q&A box? So my connectivity is poor.
I had a look at those questions, and indirectly I have applied them. I had
yes.
questions.
That is why I was also not mentioning, because yes, somewhat it has been covered.
Okay.
Yes.
So well then, it's a really wonderful to hear your lecture, and I think there are lots of issues which we need to deliberate upon. For example, one important issue is the accounting reforms. And since you have the experience of working with the accounting reforms for the 100 Gujarat ULBs, so we would really love to hear the details of those accounting reforms, because I have these, I think this data which is actually saying that out of the 4,500 odd urban local bodies, many of them and we have
No, your voice is breaking. I think we will end is at that time, and we can have another session working out another topic, and then we can look at the way forward more in detail.
well,
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
thanks.
Somadip, sir, your voice is breaking a lot. Yes. I think now he's disconnected also, Somadip, sir. Nonetheless, sir, let me quickly propose a vote of thanks. Sir was really, sir is leading a book for us, which is going to come for Bloomsbury, and we are scheduled to launch it in Ranchi. That is also my hometown. Mayor was supposed to launch it, but COVID, so we now it is gone. That is really a work based on earlier events we did in Ranchi, that a report has come from ORF. So we have tried to look into all these nuances and play with it for that city. The officers are really cooperative there, and consultant also. So we have tried to do somewhat for our city. But sir, I would say it really takes a plethora of experts like you to touch upon these issues, and also put our mind in, I would say, so much of jungle of so many institutions. So nevertheless, I would really like to thank you joining this morning from USA, and having culled out such a wonderful presentation. Thank you, sir. And I would like to thank everyone who have participated. And those who want to have more access to Dr. Ravikant Joshi's work can write to us, or can also write to sir over his email. And sir is easily available. You can see, sir, a report has also come from CFA highlighting these issues. So thank you. Dr. Joshi, if you want to have any concluding word, you can, yes.
No, I'm really honored and very thankful to participants who have joined. Unfortunately, in this new normal, you are not able to interact much, but all of you are most welcome to write me if you have any question. My email ID is easily available on the web, but it's simple, ravikant.joshi@gmail.com. So again, thank all the participants for joining, asking some questions, and also thank all the organizers and Dr. Soumyadip and Arjun Kumar for doing this lively interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice.